Welcome to the Megacast. I'm Tyler Keith from the studios of our flagship station, Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. You can find Civic Center TV on Comcast, Channel 15, and AT&T, Channel 99, or you'll also find us in Southfield on City Cable 15 of Southfield and in the Birmingham-Bloomfield area on Birmingham Area Municipal Access. You can find us on Channel 10 in Waterford on the Media Network of Waterford, as well as in Orion Township and Lake Orion on Orion Neighborhood Television. Find us on the radio in the Birmingham, Bloomfield, and Troy area on 88.1 WBFH The Biff, and find us online in a few different places. Our Facebook pages at Civic Center TV 15 and at Lakes FM, on CivicCenterTV.com, as well as on My Michigan TV, otherwise known as MyMy, by visiting MyMyTV.com, or you can go to our website at CivicCenterTV.com/Megacast, where you'll find all the information you need to know on all of our partnering stations that we have linked directly to their website right there on our Megacast page, as well as all of our full interviews and each individual episode of the show on demand as well. Over on our coronavirus page, we have very helpful links to keep you up to date on COVID-19 and more by clicking on the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention links, the State of Michigan link for the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, and the Oakland County link, which will take you to information from the Oakland County Health Division, so you can stay up to date on COVID-19 here in our communities, whether it be locally here in Oakland County, where we originate our broadcast, across the state of Michigan, where we base our entire show, or all across the U.S. and the world, from resources on the front line, experts who have been researching COVID-19 since day one of this pandemic, since it was first discovered months before a pandemic was declared, and those that have expertise in this area of study in the sciences that dates way before COVID-19 was even a thing. By visiting our website, CivicCenterTV.com/coronavirus, you can get those links right at the top of our page, and then just a little bit down the page from that, we scour journalistic outlets all across the state of Michigan on the daily to keep you up to date on news regarding COVID-19 and other top stories making headlines across the great state of Michigan. And today, as we are approaching the 2 full year mark at least, of COVID-19, MLive has the story out today. COVID is here to stay, but could Omicron shift the pandemic into being endemic? There's a sense of cautious optimism within the scientific and medical communities that more infectious yet less pathogenic Omicron variant of coronavirus could be what's needed to move the world out of the pandemic status it's held for the better part of 2 years. Health officials have warned that the coronavirus is here to stay at this point. However, there's hope for a not too distant future in which COVID doesn't flood our hospitals and disrupt our society due to significant level of immunity. Quote, "I would hope that's the case, but that would only be the case if we don't get another variant that eludes the immune response to the prior variant," said Dr. Anthony Fauci, the nation's leading infectious disease expert, during a Tuesday, January 18th interview on NBC News, saying, quote, continuing, quote, "The answer is we do not know that, and I think we have to be openly honest about that," continuing by saying, "I really do think it is an open question as to whether or not Omicron will be the live virus vaccination everyone is hoping for, because you have such a great deal of variability with the new variants that are emerging," closed quote. Viruses like influenza or those that cause common cold are endemic, meaning they're found regularly among the population at a level that's manageable for the community's healthcare system. At some point, health officials expect coronavirus to join those viruses, but we're not there yet due to insufficient vaccine uptake and the rapid evolution of the virus into new strains. Quote, "To get to endemic, it has to be fairly mild, or that it doesn't spread as much," said Dr. Matthew Sims, an infectious disease specialist for Beaumont Health. Dr. Sims continued, "The common cold is endemic. Everybody gets a cold a year or something like that," and closed quote. "Each new variant needs a level of competitive advantage over the last in order to spread and take over as the dominant strain. Doctors say Omicron, which has as many as 32 mutations in its genes for the spike protein, spreads more easily than the already infectious Delta strain that has a greater ability to evade prior immunity. That explains why Michigan is averaging about just over 17,500 cases per day, more than double the height of the previous surges. The latest variant of concern has been reported in 59 of Michigan's 83 counties, though sequencing limitations mean Omicron has spread even further than that. Omicron is also believed to cause less severe illness than previous variants, though it is still sending patients into the hospital, especially if they have no prior immunity from either vaccination or previous infection or both. Michigan hospitals were treating more than 4,750 COVID patients as of last week, Tuesday, January 18th. Doctors continue to encourage vaccination, including getting a booster 5 months or more after your primary series, as the best way to protect yourself from serious COVID illness. More than 6 million residents have gotten vaccinated and nearly 2.6 million have gotten a booster shot. The state doesn't have a clear estimate of how many residents have some level of immunity between vaccines and natural immunity. However, officials warn that it's still not safe to seek out infection as a means of pushing society toward the idea of quote-unquote herd immunity. Asked if Omicron might be the variant that gets us from the pandemic to endemic status, some doctors agree that it could be a step in the right direction, but much like Dr. Fauci, they weren't ready to make any bold predictions. That full article from MLive on our website, civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. Next, making headlines on our website at civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. Today is the day that Oxford High School students will return to the high school building proper, just a couple of months past the deadly shooting that occurred there on November 30th. This is from the Detroit Free Press. Nearly 2 months after a deadly shooting left 4 students dead and 7 others wounded, Oxford High School students will return on Monday for their first school day at the high school's campus since the tragedy. Many students will likely return to campus changed, both mentally and physically, as a result of the shooting when a student opened fire in the hallway during the school day. About 1,500 students attend Oxford High School, according to their state enrollment data. And they'll come back to a changed school building as well. Since December, the campus has undergone multiple renovations to improve the campus after it sustained significant damage from the shooting. They will also return to a new district-implemented support measures that are aimed at helping students burdened with the mental toll that a shooting takes on a person. Quote, "As a community, we will get through this with love and grace for one another," said Superintendent Tim Throne in a public statement released last week, Tuesday, on January 18th. What has changed over at Oxford High School? One of the first changes students are likely to notice is each other's bags. The Oxford district adopted a clear backpack policy, which is linked in this article. In the wake of the shooting, the backpacks have also been required at the middle school, where high school students have had some in-person classes since the building was closed in the wake of the November 30th shooting. Photos provided by the district of the renovation show large Wildcat graphics. The Wildcat is, of course, the school's mascot. Other renovations include adding new paint, wall graphics, ceiling tiles, and more, according to Danny Stablinsky, who is the district spokesperson. Lockers will be adorned with encouraging notes from elementary and middle school students as well. The school will also have added security. Law enforcement and personnel from a security firm will be on district campuses as students return. So what are the students facing? The school district is adding therapy dogs to campuses to comfort students as they navigate life after the shooting. Staff members are also now trained in trauma response. Students also have the opportunity to see mental health providers, and multiple professionally trained trauma specialists will remain on campus, according to Oxford's website. The mental supports are all in place to help students cope after the shooting, according to the National Center for PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. 28% of people who have witnessed a mass shooting develop post-traumatic stress disorder. Experts say students need consistency and support after such a tragedy. The district asked members of the news media to refrain from being on the high school campus Monday as students return. Upon the advice of a trauma specialist, the district is also removing a temporary memorial before students return to school. According to Throne, Oxford is planning a permanent memorial to honor the lives of those students who died in the shooting on November 30th. That full article with additional materials linked from the Detroit Free Press on our website at civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. Lastly, more unfortunate news coming from East Lansing late last week. This is from the Detroit News, as the MSU police have confirmed Brendan Santos' body was positively identified after an investigation tip led to recovery last week, Friday. An online petition has been started for more safety measures on Michigan's State University's campus after the missing Brendan Santos' body was found Friday in the Red Cedar River. A Change.org petition, which now has more than 10,000 signatures as of Sunday night, said there is no fencing along the Red Cedar and it is, quote, not explorable or walkable by humans or animals, given that, quote, it drops quickly to a steep ravine and river that is, quote, very dangerous with no danger or warning signs near the opening, and close quote. The petition continued on saying, quote, MSU needs to put barriers, lighting, and signage in place to prevent any further tragedies along the Red Cedar River and the ravine. Let's make MSU a safer place in the memory of our beloved Brendan Santo, and close quote. Santo's body was identified by the medical examiner on Saturday night, MSU police say, after a private investigator working with Santo's family alerted them the body had been found in the river. The identification was made based on dental records, says Chris Roseman, a MSU police spokesman, in an email. The petition went up Saturday to Change.org the day the body was formally identified. Police said that they had planned to search the area of the river the following week, but the tip from private investigator Ryan Robinson at about midnight on Friday led them to close off the area and begin assembling dive resources within an hour of that notification. The search, which began at first light, resulted in the recovery of a body believed to be that of the 18-year-old Santo of Rochester Hills at about 12:30 p.m. On Friday in an area of the river near the intersections of Kalamazoo and Clippert Streets in Lansing. Robinson has been working with the Santo family and was reviewing underwater video of the area when, quote, he saw something completely submerged in the water at the logjam, according to the statement from MSU police. Robinson then told the Santo family and contacted 911 centers in both Ingham and Oakland counties, according to police. A social media post Friday night highlighting Robinson's involvement went viral. In a statement Saturday, MSU police said it was their intention to hide Robinson's role in the investigation. So it wasn't their intention. MSU police said it wasn't their intention to hide Robinson's role in the investigation. The department said it hadn't named Robinson publicly because they weren't sure if he or the Santo family wanted that information to be public. Instead, the department's press release on Friday said police, quote, worked collaboratively with the Santo family and their supporters and that their help was, quote, essential in finding Santo, and closed quote. Law enforcement had planned to search the area when the body was found at the logjam, of course, as was reported in here. The investigation into Santo's disappearance remains active, but police do not believe Santo intended to harm himself or that foul play was involved. Santo was among the thousands who attended East Lansing on October 29th and that following weekend ahead of a rivalry football game between Michigan State University and the University of Michigan. The Grand Valley State University student vanished shortly before the game, and both family members, friends, volunteers, and law enforcement have been searching for him in the 80 days since. Searches started off within a day after Santo left Yakeley Hall on the northern edge of campus near Michigan Avenue, where police say the teen was last spotted walking away shortly before midnight. He had driven his truck to campus and planned to stay with friends in the complex of residence halls known as the Brody neighborhood, a nearly 15-minute walk west, his family had said. Wearing a black baseball cap, black t-shirt, gray sweatpants, and white Converse high tops, Santo wore a gold cross necklace and had his iPhone in hand. Investigators had learned that the device had zero power, relatives have said, and that it was last pinpointed on Beale Street just south of Yakeley Hall. MSU President Samuel Stanley previously confirmed the security camera at the entrance of Yakeley Hall was not operational the night that he was last seen. In an email on Friday to the Spartan student community and faculty, Stanley and Marlon Lynch, Vice President for Public Safety and Chief of Police, said that they were saddened to share that the body believed to be that of Santo was recovered from the river. That full article from the Detroit News, as well as our other articles and those links to the CDC, MDHHS, and Oakland County Health Division on our website at civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. We have a good show ahead of you today on this Monday edition of the Megacast. Coming up next, I'll be speaking with Father Tim McCabe, the Executive Director of the Pope Francis Center, about their work helping to support the homeless population in the Detroit area during this winter season and beyond. At 10:40 at the bottom of the hour, Representative Ryan Berman, a Republican from the state's 39th House District, will join me on the show. At 11 o'clock, we'll be joined by Sarah Goodenow, a features editor at the Oakland Post, which is Oakland University's a student-ran independent newspaper. At 11:20, the Author's Den, hosted by Chris Campbell, will be a part of our show as we highlight some of the great work of many of our partnering television, radio, and other media outlets on this Megacast network. And then we'll cap off the show at 11:40 with David Franco, the director of Exceptional Academy, which is providing IT training to those with disabilities and helping them get jobs as well. That entire list of different people joining our show is coming up next. You're watching and listening to the Megacast.
A message from the staff of Michigan's Crime Victim Compensation Program.
Anyone can be a victim of crime
and suffer lasting trauma, physically, emotionally, and financially.
But you are not alone.
If you're struggling financially due to a crime,
we're here
for you.
Find out if you qualify for crime victim compensation.
Call 877-251-7373 or visit michigan.gov/crime-victim.
A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Victim Services.
If you are struggling to afford your internet bills during the pandemic, there's a temporary government program that may be able to help. It's called the Emergency Broadband Benefit, and it provides up to a $50 monthly discount on your broadband bill to qualifying households. Find more information about the program, including if you qualify and how to enroll, at fcc.gov/broadbandbenefit or call toll-free at 833-511-0311.
A public service announcement from 89.3 Lakes FM.
You see certain things get reincarnated in your children. My daughter is very much inspired by my wife's artistic pursuits. So my daughter started making necklaces. She makes what we call affirmation fashion. I tell her every day that your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. And if there's anything better than being beautiful, it's being smart. And if there's anything better than being smart, it's being kind. And reaffirming that every day is our method of making sure her chin never drops. My dad wasn't around, and I remember riding a bike and falling off and cutting myself, and me never just wanting to get back on it. People ask, how your children learn how to ride a bike, and you didn't. I didn't teach them. I just created an environment where they taught themselves, and all I had to do was be there.
Whether you're the city,
the county,
or the Huron River Watershed Council.
As partners working together to protect our water resources, we agree.
Pet waste is the source of harmful bacteria in the Huron River.
When it's left on the ground, it can wash into the storm drains.
These lead directly to our streams. No filters, no treatment.
Here's one thing we know that can help keep our water clean.
Pick up pet waste and trash it.
Pick up pet waste and trash it.
So pick up pet waste and trash it.
There's one water, and it's ours to protect.
Who is struggling right now?
I am.
My son is.
Many are struggling with anxiety, depression, and substance use. Before it becomes a crisis, reach out to MyCal, the Michigan Crisis and Access Line, for free confidential support 24/7. Available in the Upper Peninsula and Oakland County. Just call or text 1-844-44-MyCal or chat online at michigan.gov/MyCal. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Welcome back to the Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe. You can learn more about our show and as well as all of our partnering television, radio, and web outlets. Join us each and every day live from 10 a.m. to 12 noon, Monday through Friday, by visiting our website at civiccentertv.com/megacast. Well, if you've been outside lately, it's been cold, it's been windy, it's been blustery, and lucky for us, we all get to go home or go to our place of work and get warm and stay out of the elements. But for some, that is also where they live, and they need a lot of support. And there is an organization locally here in the Detroit area that's been working hard for a long time to support those in our homeless population. Those are our friends over at the Pope Francis Center. We're pleased to be joined now by their executive director, Father Tim McCabe, with us on the Megacast. Father, thank you for being with us today.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate having you on. So let's start off. Can you give us just a brief overview of the history of the Pope Francis Center and its mission in our community?
Yeah, we have been serving the homeless population in downtown Detroit for 30 plus years. We started as a small organization out of the back of St. Peter and Paul Church. We've grown into a multi-service organization, which includes showers, laundry, 2 meals a day, medical, dental clinics, legal clinics, things like that, to help alleviate some of the suffering that folks living on the streets experience on a day-to-day basis.
That can be tough, especially in a large city like Detroit, especially and in a large downtown area like Detroit features, for someone that is homeless to seek these services if they're a far distance away from your facilities, especially when there's inclement weather like we've been experiencing over the last several days and the last couple of weeks here in this Michigan winter. So how does the homeless population seek your services, or do you seek the homeless population to provide these services to them?
Yeah, they find us. We're currently working out of the Huntington Place, the former Cobo Hall Convention Center, and there is a large population of people who are experiencing homelessness downtown. Those who are in shelters and need a place to come during the day, early day hours, find their way to us. They take a bus, or generally if they're outside the walking distances. But generally when somebody, especially when they're first homeless, they gravitate towards downtown because that's where they find the resources that they need.
And so over the holidays, Father McCabe, the Pope Francis Center received the help of a couple of Detroit's largest companies, largest businesses, including General Motors, who was able to help with long lines of people that were awaiting for COVID-19 tests before they entered your facilities for some of your service. Can you speak to some of the many different ways that these companies, including GM, had helped your organization provide its services, especially during a busy time like the holidays, and as we go into some of the tougher months of the year, I would imagine, for the homeless population and the cold blustery winters?
Yeah, so we live in a very generous city, and a lot of our corporations really see themselves as community partners. So Ford Motor Company, Lear, GM, they all have kind of rallied around us and help us provide our services. So we're currently building a housing facility to help end chronic homelessness in our city. So all three of them have contributed financially to that effort. And as you mentioned, GM came forward. I knew they were using those temperature kiosk machines in the Renaissance Center, and I just called and asked where they got them, trying to locate where we could get our own. And they called me back and said, we'll give you 2 of ours to use. And so we put those up at Huntington Place so that when people come in, we can at least check temperatures as part of our screening process for COVID. And then if they do test positive or are symptomatic, the city's done a great job of making sure that there's quarantine sites for people to go to while they recover from COVID.
We're joined by Father Tim McCabe, who is the executive director of the Pope Francis Center, joining us on the Megacast. And so as part of that support from Ford and from GM, from Lear, and from other organizations that you were talking about, in December, you were able to break ground on the Bridge Housing Campus. That's going to be a really great effort here in the local area in downtown Detroit to provide not only shelter but also additional services to the homeless community that will be really helpful in helping them hopefully transition away from being in the homeless population and into regular homes and into regular jobs and living the life that they deserve to be able to live. Can you tell us a little bit about both the idea behind the Bridge Housing Complex and some of the features that will be included to help our homeless population and end up getting themselves out of the homeless population?
Sure. So one of the things that I love about our program that we're currently doing is that we provide, day-to-day services, and we do it really well. We treat people with dignity and respect, and we don't judge them for whatever they're carrying in their lives. But I recognize that it was only transactional. We weren't really changing their situation. We're simply providing them services. And so I went around the country. I looked at 22 different programs in 9 different cities. And I developed what I understand from the best practices of other places around the country, a program that can end chronic homelessness in the city of Detroit. And that, so we began to develop that, begin to work with architects and builders. And so, as you mentioned, we broke ground last month, and we will build a facility that will really focus on what it takes to make that transition, because it's a very difficult transition for folks who have habitualized being on the street. So trauma-informed care, recognizing that homelessness is a result of trauma, and so approaching their care in that a way to give them individualized care so that we're dealing specifically with their history and their needs, because everybody's needs are different. And then we provide, along with housing, social work, job training, psych, addiction, all of the different people in offices working together to kind of help them make that difficult transition, and often the support that they need to do that, so they're successful once they do get into permanent housing.
And it's important too, not only to provide those services, but to provide them for an extended period of time as well. And so it will, of course, at the Bridge Housing Center be a temporary shelter, but how long will the homeless population that will be taking residency in these studio apartments, when they are complete, how long will they be able to be there and take in those services that will help them build their future?
So based on what I saw around the country, I'm anticipating that most people will be able to make the transition between 90 and 120 days. We'll give them what they need to stabilize and move forward towards housing. Some will take less time, some will take more time, but that's kind of what we're thinking. I think, right now we're seeing, because of the moratorium on eviction being lifted, that we're seeing a lot of people who are newly homeless, and those folks who have never been homeless before, that we can get them into housing pretty quickly. But for folks that are chronically homeless, been on the streets for years, who are dealing with severe mental illness or addiction, they're going to take a little bit longer to kind of stabilize and get the support that they need to make that move.
We're joined by Father Tim McCabe, the Executive Director of the Pope Francis Center, joining us on the Megacast. Of course, this is all going to be great. A lot of services being provided, 40 studio apartments, temporary shelter for from a quarter of a year, 90 days, to roughly a third of the year in 120 days. And it's important, too, because I would imagine for those that are in the homeless population, that are chronically homeless especially, and dealing with mental health issues or physical health issues or other issues on top of their homelessness, that their day-to-day life is about survival, not about that next step, not about necessarily helping themselves get out of that homelessness situation, but get to the next day and get to the next day. And so a service like this can only be extremely helpful, I would think, to anybody, whether they are, like you said, newly homeless because of the lifting of the eviction moratorium, and it's their first time that someone's living on the streets, or they've been chronically homeless. So it's exciting to know this is coming to downtown Detroit. When do you expect that the Bridge Housing Center will be operational and begin to be able to provide this exceptional level of service on top of what's already provided by your organization?
Yeah, 18 to 24 months basically is the building projections. Obviously, there's been a disruption in construction materials, and there's all shortages on labor. So we're kind of weighing that, but based on our best projections, 18 to 24 months we'll be up and running.
We're joined by Father Tim McCabe, who is the Executive Director of the Pope Francis Center, joining us on the Megacast. And so, of course, the Bridge Housing Center, a lot of the efforts of recently during the pandemic have been through great support of local organizations and local businesses, but it takes the community support to provide these organizations with the resources that they need to help a wide mass of people in the Detroit area, especially in downtown Detroit in particular, that are helping our homeless population. So what are some of the many ways that people in Detroit, in the metro area, can support your organization if they would like to do so, and by doing so, help our homeless population in the local area?
Yeah, great question. So there are two. If folks wanted to help out with the Bridge Housing, and that our goal of ending chronic homelessness by 2030, that's a financial contribution that would be, we still have about $5 million to raise of the $30 million that it will cost to build this building or this campus. If people wanted to help with the day-to-day operations that we're currently doing at Huntington Place, they can go to our website at popefranciscenter.org and find our volunteer page and sign up. There's a calendar there. It'll show you volunteer slots, and they help with serving food, helping with the distribution of hygiene products, working in our laundry or showers, or helping with the meal preps, because we provide nutritious homemade meals every day to kind of make sure there's a nutrient-dense, balanced meal that they're getting on a daily basis. So any of those options, PopeFrancisCenter.org, you can make a donation there, or you can sign up to volunteer there. There are multiple ways that people can help. And as you said, it takes a community to tackle a problem as significant as this. We don't want to end up like the West Coast, where the numbers are so high that it seems almost impossible to address. I mean, I was out in LA and there's 50,000 unsheltered. And that's just beyond anything I can imagine fixing. But our numbers are still, the city's done a great job, and there's a lot of good organizations working with the homeless. This is a gap in services that we're going to fill and actually end chronic homelessness in our city.
Yeah, these are our fellow city residents, our neighbors, our friends, our family, our coworkers. It's not just people that have been struggling for a long time, or not just people with mental illness or addiction issues or whatever the case may be. It's people all across the board. Homelessness can affect a wide range of people, and does. And so having these services available in our communities is vital, and having that support from the community makes these services possible. We're joined by Father Tim McCabe, the Executive Director of the Pope Francis Center. If you'd like to learn more information or get involved with this organization, you can visit PopeFrancisCenter.org. Father McCabe, anything else for us today that you'd like us to know, or would be important for our audience to be considering about the services that you provide at this time?
I'd just say, again, our website is PopeFrancisCenter.org. It's important that we all do what we can. I have seen miracles happen when everybody gives what they have to give and participates. And again, it's a very generous community and a very loving, compassionate community. That's the spirit of Detroit. And so if people want to get involved, there's plenty of ways to do that.
Well, Father McCabe, we appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us, telling us more about the services provided by the Pope Francis Center, and as well as exciting additional services and expansion of services in the near future.
Thank you. Nice to be with you.
Nice to be with you as well. Appreciate your time. You can learn more information about the Pope Francis Center and learn how you can get involved, either yourself individually as a volunteer, your business as a partner with the organization, or in any other capacity, by visiting their website at PopeFrancisCenter.org. We're going to take a break. On the other side, we'll transition from community service to politics here in the state of Michigan. We'll be joined by Republican State Representative from Michigan's 39th District, Representative Ryan Berman. On the other side of this break, you're watching and listening to the Megacast.
Motorcyclists are hard to see. To keep everyone safer, it's important to always look for them and know where most crashes occur. 84% of motorcycle and vehicle crashes happen on streets, not highways. And most crashes with motorcyclists occur when vehicle drivers are turning left. So before turning, especially to the left, make sure you look for motorcyclists. Then look again. It could save a life.
To Sofia and Gabriel, even though these old knees can't follow on your adventure to the forest today, these flowers represent my love. These stitches and threads join us together. And wherever you see a flower, a bird, a beautiful tree, know that my love is with you.
Make the forest part of your story at a park near you. Find one at discovertheforest.org.
72.7% of high school students get less than the recommended 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night. This can cause pain, obesity, and can very negatively affect your mental health. When you have a consistent 7 to 9 hours of sleep every day, you get sick less often, lose more weight, and have better relationships with those around you. For more information about the dangers of sleep deprivation, go to sleepfoundation.org. This message is brought to you by the WBHS Digital Media Arts Program and 89.3 Lakes FM.
Can I ask you a question?
Why did you get your kids vaccinated?
It was hard for them to social distance, to be isolated from their friends.
I want them to get back to school and sports games. So as a pediatrician, I recommend the vaccine to everyone I know.
The boys lost a former teammate and classmate who was only 20 years old. It's been a devastating year.
We want to get back to normalcy. Our daughter is really looking forward to being with her friends, being a kid.
It's the Great Lakes water. And so what people do ends up in our waterways.
Flushable wipes are just
evil. They should be thrown away. They're impossible to destroy, and they can cause significant problems.
One of the main things when you're cooking is to not dump fats, oils, and greases down your drains.
They stick to the sides of pipes, they stick to everything they come in contact with. Don't put it down the sink.
There's one water, and it's ours to protect.
When times get dark, we can't see the help that's all around us. When you don't know where to turn, let 211 be your guiding light.
How can I help you?
Our guides are ready to connect you with the help you need. For help with food, healthcare, mental health, and other resources. Call 211 or visit 211.org. 211. Get connected, get help.
We may come from different organizations,
but we work together to protect the Huron River for everyone.
Neighborhood storm drains carry water directly to local creeks and streams. No filters, no treatment.
Storm drains also help reduce street flooding when it rains.
So clearing storm drains and the areas nearby of trash and leaves helps keep them for rain only.
It is easy to do your part by adopting a storm drain.
Find a storm drain, check it, and clear it every month.
So keep storm drains for rain only.
There's one water, and it's ours to protect.
If you are struggling to afford your internet bills during the pandemic, there's a temporary government program that may be able to help. It's called the Emergency Broadband Benefit, and it provides up to a $50 monthly discount on your broadband bill to qualifying households. Find more information about the program, including if you qualify and how to enroll, at fcc.gov/broadbandbenefit or call toll-free at 833-511-0311.
A public service announcement from 89.3 Lakes FM. Welcome back to the Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe. You can learn more information about everywhere that we broadcast live and live to tape, and find us on demand as well on civiccentertv.com/Megacast. Joining us now is State Representative Ryan Berman, representing Michigan's 39th Congressional District in the state of Michigan. Joining us on the Megacast, Representative Berman, thank you for being with us again.
Hey, thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, appreciate having you on. So you recently there was a bill that you introduced with State Representative Karen Whitsitt to extend the statute of limitations for victims of abuse by physicians. Of course, this was in light of the settlement that was made between the University of Michigan and the victims of Dr. Robert Anderson under its supervision, of course, as well, thinking of the victims of Larry Nassar at Michigan State University as well. Talk about you and Representative Whitsitt, who is a Democrat, coming together on this bipartisan bill to support victims of abuse from physicians here in the state of Michigan in the future, in light of what we've learned over the years past with the situation at the University of Michigan and at Michigan State University.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, this package of bills, like all my major legislation, I try to focus on putting people over politics, right? I'm probably one of the most bipartisan, if not the most bipartisan, Republican representative in the state House, having co-sponsors on bills of both parties, Republicans and Democrats. And this is no different. This is something that shouldn't be partisan at all, right? And we introduced this package of a two-bill package of empowering survivors legislation last session, and that was with COVID and everything else going on, referred to the Judiciary Committee, one of the most busiest committees there was, and it really didn't go anywhere, unfortunately, with the time frame. We were both fortunate to be reelected coming in, and it's again one of the top priorities in ensuring that victims, survivors have proper recourse and redress for the wrongs that were committed against them, their opportunity to get it to court. So we reintroduced this package, these two bills. They were referred to the Oversight Committee, which typically isn't as busy as the judiciary, which every facet of laws, obviously making laws, judiciary has a big effect on that. But Oversight has been very overwhelmed in itself, busy committee, but we've got hearings on them. We had hearings back in September, I believe, and trying to schedule another hearing. A lot of people wanted to testify. You know, you only get about an hour, hour and a half max for a committee hearing. So, and you have people from all around the country where this ends up affecting, and we saw what happened, especially with the Dr. Robert Anderson survivors, of just how many of them there are, right? Something like 400, 500 people that have come forward. So the next scheduled hearings are actually set for next week, the beginning of February. Now that there has been a settlement in the U of M, the U of M litigation, which this really was brought forward to, address, but it goes beyond that. The question is, hey, are you still moving forward to these packages? And the answer is absolutely. So, I think now more than ever that we need to change our laws. And the two bills in the package, my bill dealt with the issue of government immunity and some of these predators hiding behind that shield of governmental immunity if, when they were doing this type of abuse, they were in a governmental agency as an agent of the state. So what my bill does is says, in regardless of what happened in the past, moving forward, hey, if you're an agent, if you're a governmental entity or an agent of that government, you cannot stand behind that shield of immunity. If you knew that if there was abuse in the past and you failed to prevent any further abuse. Basically what happened in the Nassar, what happened in Anderson, what happens all over the place where people maybe turn a blind eye and let this problem continue to happen when there's sufficient notice or allegations that something has transpired. Because we don't want somebody turning a blind eye. We don't want this happening again. We don't want not only one victim, but multiple victims to be victimized and that perpetrator to be shielded, or that entity that allowed it to happen to escape unpunished, if you will, without any type of civil redress because of our immunity laws. So my bill going forward was always, from this point, it did have a retroactive application, but more for the future. Rep. Whitsett's bill does deal with the statute of limitations, makes a change. The most important part of that bill was opening up a 1-year window opportunity for those who were victims in the past to then bring their claims forward in court without having to deal with statute of limitations defenses. Now that the U of M scandal at Robert Anderson, it seems like that's being settled. I heard that the next day there was another lawsuit filed in federal court, someone who wasn't part of that initial class. So it still will help that in those situations, but others, and also moving forward, adjusting our statute of limitations period here in Michigan with how many years you have to then file a claim once you have reason to know of an injury.
And that statute of limitations is vitally important for victims of sexual abuse who in many cases, because of the trauma of the situation that they've undergone, because of the people that often are perpetrating this abuse being in positions of power, either as someone's direct physician or, as you said, as an agent of government, or as someone that's affiliated with an agency of government. And so they don't come forward sometimes for many years. And expanding that statute of limitations helps the victims, if and when they do reach that point, that they can still have justice accounted for in their situation, and that they can still assure and work with the state and work with law enforcement to assure that those that are responsible for that abuse are held accountable. And on top of that, in your case, and on your side of the bill, holds those accountable in positions of power that are supported by our government and doesn't protect them from their own crimes, from their own atrocities in the future. So that's really good to hear. We're joined by Representative Ryan Berman, a Republican from the 39th District here in the state of Michigan. Other legislation you've introduced in the recent past, last October, you had helped pass a bill in the Michigan House. It was Bill 5007 that would eliminate the $10 fee on state personal identification cards for Michigan residents. It would allow same-day appointment making and priority for those looking to get a state ID. It ultimately did pass, but then was vetoed by the governor. Your reaction first to her veto of that bill, and then secondly, the motivation behind putting that bill through as a way to help Michiganders who are seeking an ID card get an ID card.
Yeah, so, the first is that if you can't, an ID is it's $10, and you need an ID for pretty much anything you do in our society. Opening a bank account, driving, a driver's license, but ordering a drink, you need to prove your identity, prove your age. When you're talking about government and whether you believe in smaller government, limited government, the government purpose, agencies, one of the most basic fundamental things a government can do is verify somebody's identity and give them an identification. So if you can't afford an ID, I think we all pay taxes. Our tax money goes in all types of programs, resources, grants, administrating all types of departments, and we give millions of dollars to the Secretary of State's office through our tax money. How come, if we're already paying for those services, how come we're paying again to get those IDs? That's kind of what I thought of, hey, if the government's going to do anything with our tax money, it should be providing this necessary service that everybody needs. And yeah, maybe it's just $10, but one of the things is not everybody can afford it is something that I've heard. Well, if you can't afford an ID right now, you have to actually come up with more paperwork. And it's, again, a stigma associated with that, where if you feel embarrassed or maybe it prevents somebody. I want to make government accessible and easy to transact with for all residents. So I think one of those barriers to remove is that fee. So it was a good idea, something on my part that I put it forward. I got Rep. Jim Ellison, representative from the Royal Oak area. Again, most of my legislation, before I submit it, I'll at least go over, talk to a couple of my Democrat colleagues, get somebody to co-sponsor it, showing, hey, this is an idea that both parties can get behind, especially when you're in divided government, ultimately landing on the governor's desk. So he co-sponsored that. It went forward. And then with some other bills in the House, when they were addressing elections and election improvements, they brought up the showing an ID to vote. So right now, you have to show your ID to vote. If you don't have an ID to vote, you fill out an affidavit saying you are who you are. Other states, it's kind of easy. There's an issue. A lot of people have issue with it, but they brought up these bills, and especially for absentee ballots, showing an ID. And if you don't show your ID, then you get a provisional ballot, and then you have X amount of days, I think a week later, to cure that, bring in your actual ID, and then they will have your provisional ballot counted as a real ballot. If you fail to prove who you actually are with that, then that provisional ballot doesn't get counted. So those two bills went through and made their way through the Senate and the House. And my House bill, they ended up bringing up with it because one of the attacks on those bills was that it's not that easy for everybody in our society to grab an ID. Well, they saw that I had that bill submitted that makes it easier for people to get an ID, and they brought that bill up with those other two voting bills. When that happened, it became a partisan issue, which I still don't understand why it's a partisan thing, showing an ID to vote. But every single Democrat voted against those two bills. My bill was brought up with it, so they all voted against mine, including my co-sponsor, unfortunately. It went to the governor's desk, and she vetoed it.
We're joined by Representative Ryan Berman, representing Michigan's 39th District on the Megacast. For those that weren't aware, you announced previously your desire to seek the position of Attorney General in the next election that will be coming up this November. Tell us why you considered seeking that that role and what difference you would intend to be making as the Attorney General of the state of Michigan should you be elected.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm now serving, as you know, my second term in the House. Before that, I was private practice as an attorney, general practice, representing a lot of small businesses as their general counsel, doing both the civil side and also criminal side, criminal defense. But I have an extensive background in law enforcement, working in the community as a reserve deputy, reserve police officer in Sylvan Lake. I was a special prosecutor, firearms instructor, use of force instructor, very broad background in law enforcement, in the private sector in law, now in the public sector as a state representative, again, bipartisan, reaching across the aisle. My background really, is the background of someone that you want as our Attorney General. And Dana Nessel, there's a lot of criticisms of what she has done or what she hasn't done in office, including, giving her other colleagues, Gretchen Whitmer, Jocelyn Benson, being very hyper partisan, whether it's, having a D next to your name kind of gives them an easy out. Lots of examples, but what I want to do is I don't care if you have a D or an R next to your name. I'm going to treat everybody the same. You shouldn't be afraid. Nobody should be afraid of being investigated by the Attorney General just because you have a D or an R next to your name. The only people that should be afraid of the Attorney General are criminals, real criminals. And so I'm looking to take that office and bring integrity and accountability and transparency back and not have political prosecutions or type of, partisanship that this office really has seen.
Representative Berman, just another couple minutes with you before we'll say goodbye today. In the meantime, just want to get one more update on the work that you've been doing out in Lansing. Any other bills that you're currently working on at this time in your Republican caucus and a bipartisan nature that people may be seeing come on the docket here in the near future?
Yeah, you know what? A lot of my bills, again, are kind of, to me, they're common sense measures, but trying to make the government more transparent and accountable to the people. It's things of getting and using technology, getting online, easy access to court records. I think I've talked about that one before, that's sitting in the Senate. I have a lot of bills that have passed the House, including expanding our Freedom of Information Act to the legislative branch. So I was the lead sponsor of the Legislative Open Records Act, expanding FOIA. Passed the House last term, sat in the Senate, just passed the House this term, sitting in the Senate. Have a lot of bills, some criminal justice issues, decriminalizing some things, updating our laws, things that I've seen in private practice or as a reserve police officer that really didn't make sense, things that we need to clean up. And I think the majority of my bills have passed the House now, and now it's really to get the Senate to move on them. They're a little slower over there. I think maybe we'll have to ask Senator Runstead what's going on that side. But, all my bills sponsored, you can go to the Michigan legislature, go to the website. I think it's michiganlegislature.gov. I believe, and just search. You can search by bills, by sponsor. You can look me up to see those bills and see the status of them on the website. But you can always contact me, anybody listening in the area. My office is very open, accessible, as I am myself personally. So you can reach out and email, call my office. We'll get back to you on any type of issues. Really dealing with a lot of things over in the past with our constituents, with unemployment has been a huge one, of helping people with their claims, getting their money. And now with the administration is trying to claw back and get money, saying that they've overpaid people. That's an issue now due to their own mistakes. And that's a bill that's actually going to come up this week, sponsored by Rep. DeMoose, to try to clear that problem, because I know a lot of constituents are and have been affected by that.
Representative Berman, thank you very much for joining us, telling us more about some of your very important bipartisan legislation that will help victims of sexual abuse here in our state of Michigan, and other things that you're working on there in Lansing. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Good to have you on the show. Appreciate your time. We were joined by Representative Ryan Berman, Republican from the state's 39th district, on the Megacast. And of course, if you want to learn more about his legislation that's upcoming or has gone through its committees and is nearing a vote, that website he was talking about, legislature.mi.gov. We're going to take a break on your radio homes for the Megacast. 89.3 WBLD, Orchard Lake, West Bloomfield, Keego Harbor, Sylvan Lake, and 88.1 WBFH, Bloomfield Hills. On the other side, we'll go from Lansing to Oakland University, where we'll speak with the features editor at their student-ran independent newspaper, the Oakland Post. Sarah Goodenow, the features editor, will join us next. You're watching and listening to the Megacast.
We as Michiganders feel connected to this resource in a way that I think is really powerful.
Conservation starts with a caring, committed community.
For me, it's peaceful to have a relationship with the river.
Every single one of us has a role to make sure that those waterways stay safe and healthy, being careful about what goes down the storm drain.
Just even eliminating some of your single-use plastic makes a difference.
There's one water, and it's ours to protect.
Did you know that nearly 3.31 million Americans don't get their annual checkup? Going to the doctor regularly is extremely important and is a crucial factor in maintaining good health. Make sure you are visiting your local doctor often and telling them about any health concerns you have. For more information, contact your local healthcare provider. This message is brought to you by WBHS Digital Media Arts Program and 89.3 Lakes FM.
People are getting out to walk and bike in higher numbers. More vulnerable road users and higher speed traffic can be a dangerous combination. Crash severity has increased, so if you're driving, be sure to slow down and look for people. There's no need to speed. If you're biking, ride with traffic. If you're walking, avoid stepping into the road if possible. If you have to walk in the street, walk facing traffic. Learn more at walkbikedrivesafe.org.
When times get dark, we can't see the help that's all around us. When you don't know where to turn, let 211 be your guiding light.
How can I help you?
Our guides are ready to connect you with the help you need. For help with food, healthcare, mental health, and other resources, call 211 or visit 211.org. 211. Get connected, get help.
Parents do a lot of worrying. Get your kids caught up on childhood vaccines to protect them from these 14 preventable diseases, and you'll have 14 fewer things to worry about. Vaccines are safe and effective and save lives. So let's get caught up on vaccines and worry about something else. Get the facts at ivaccinate.org.
We may come from different organizations,
but we work together to protect the Huron River for everyone.
Most of the pollution that goes into our rivers is carried by rainwater that flows off of roads, parking lots, and rooftops.
The leaves and bark of a single tree can retain a surprising amount of rainwater. Depending on its size and species, it could be 100 gallons or more.
It is estimated that an urban forest can reduce annual runoff by up to 7%.
Here's one thing that we know can help keep our water clean.
Plant a tree.
Plant a tree.
Plant a tree.
There's one water, and it's ours to protect.
One of the things you can look for in your friends is a change in behavior. These can be big changes, they can be small changes in mood, physical appearance. They may be sleeping less or sleeping more, drinking more, or their eating patterns may be different. One big change that can be pretty obvious is change in motivation. Do they no longer want to play basketball? Do they no longer want to play video games? Now that we're spending more time online and in virtual settings, it's really important to pay attention to the language that your friend is using and the words they're using to communicate. So when we text our friends, are they taking longer amounts of time to respond? Are they not responding at all? You don't have to be an expert to try to recognize these signs. The second that you feel it in your gut and that you're concerned, that's the second to have the conversation and open the door to what might be going on.
Today, it is easier than ever to join Michigan's Organ Donor Registry and help build a bridge of hope for organ, tissue, and eye donation. Just one person can potentially save or help improve the lives of up to 75 people. By joining, your legacy could be the gift of life. Sign up today at michigan.gov/SOS or at any of the more than 145 Secretary of State self-service stations located across Michigan. Be part of Michigan's Bridge of Hope by adding your name to the Organ Donor Registry.
Joining me now is Sarah Goodenow. She is a Oakland University journalism student and the features editor at the independent student newspaper, the Oakland Post, as well. Sarah, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate having you on. So first off, tell us a little bit about yourself. You're a journalism major. Or a journalism student. What had drawn you to that path for your career and for your studies?
Sure. Well, my decision for journalism as my path wasn't really that straightforward. I actually entered university as an undecided student. It's hard to know what you want to do when you're 17, but I did know that I wanted a field that I could put my creativity to use. So what I actually ended up doing, I had a printed list of all the majors that Oakland University had to offer, and I went through one by one, X'd out the hard passes, circled the maybes, and one of those maybes was journalism. So I took the introductory course, and it turns out that I really enjoyed it. I've always loved reading and writing, and I really appreciate storytelling. And I've kind of discovered that feature writing is an area of journalism that I especially like, and one that, you know, as a journalist, you get to interview a bunch of different people and hear different perspectives, and it's your job to kind of piece it together and make a coherent narrative or story out of it. So that's what really draws me to it.
And so you're the features editor currently at the Oakland Post, which is an independent student-ran newspaper at Oakland University. And it's interesting because in journalism, there's so many different paths, especially with the internet today, that you can go as a journalist, as a reporter, or a producer, or any form of a storyteller in that industry today. And so for you, going and working on the team at the Oakland Post and being a features editor and a writer as well, what really drew you to that focus in journalism and specifically to the features? You touched on it a little bit as you told us why you chose journalism as a major, but what really drew you to that among all the other options that are there in journalism?
Sure. Well, I actually started out as a graphic designer at the Oakland Post, funnily enough. I had a media design class, and the features editor position was one that was open. And while I did enjoy doing graphic design, writing and editing is more my strong suit. And really, I did have a features writing class that kind of opened my eyes to feature writing. But once I kind of started that position is where I found my appreciation and passion for editing itself.
And so journalism doesn't come to a stop with the pandemic like many other industries that can take a pause, or that can take and stop altogether. Journalism, reporting, even at the level of a student newspaper, that can't stop with the pandemic. Stories continue to need to be told, and information continues to need to go out to the public. But it can be really challenging, I would imagine, for any journalism major, for any journalist to continue to tell these stories and collect the information that they need, especially for features where you're talking to so many people about so many different topics. Touch a little bit on the challenges that you experienced and how you overcame them to continue to do what you do for the Oakland Post, and that your entire team over there has continued to do to write these features during the pandemic.
Sure. It's certainly been challenging. At the Oakland Post, we are working remotely right now, and we have been remote on and off throughout the pandemic. And what we've learned is that it takes a lot more communication than normal. We're not able to all be in the newsroom together, coming up with ideas or just editing, writing, putting together the publication, and so it takes a lot more communication. And we do have a really strong team. Everyone's really supportive and pushes each other to do the best work that they can. So to overcome that, we've just been over-communicating.
We're joined by Sarah Goodenow. She is an Oakland University journalism student, as well as the features editor for the Oakland Post, which is their independent student newspaper there at Oakland University. And so you've written a couple of interesting features fairly recently. Just a few days ago, you released an article with some tips for students that are continuing in now this 5th semester of learning under the pandemic, whether it's been in person or it's been virtual or been some sort of hybrid or a little bit of all of the above, to provide them some insight into steps that they can take to navigate the COVID-19 fatigue, the Zoom fatigue, and just a general fatigue of dealing with a crisis like this that's so complicated while also being a student in a number of different areas. So to write this article, to provide these tips, I would imagine part of it was from personal experience and your own perseverance, but also from the experience of other students. What went into crafting these tips, these 10 tips that you provided for students to overcome some of the fatigues that continue to be there during being educated during this COVID-19 pandemic?
You're exactly right. There was some personal tips in there, but I also talked to numerous students that I know of, and I also interviewed a couple of professors for that story to get their takes. And everyone had kind of similar information, so I kind of combined it as well as put my personal input as well.
We're joined by Sarah Goodenow. She is an Oakland University journalism student and the features editor at the Oakland Post, which is their student newspaper over there at Oakland University. And another article you wrote was about the impact of some social media on the attention span of young people, including students both at the university level, but also younger students as well. And of course, in the last few years, TikTok has become a lot more popular among younger people that are consuming social media. And you had a really interesting feature on that as well, talking about the shrink in their attention span. Tell us a little bit about the focus of that story, some of the interesting things that you learned along the way, and from your conversations with students and with experts in media studies, what you learned about just how the use of social media, and in particular TikTok, is impacting younger people today.
While researching that, I learned that while there's not that much research on that specific topic, TikTok is a fairly new app, and so obviously there aren't many long-term or even short-term studies about how it specifically impacts students' attention spans. So it was difficult to find sources and to really make that my focus, but something that I learned in the process that I thought was really interesting. One of my sources, Kimberly Burnock, she's a psychotherapist. She made the point that just because there is a correlation potentially between higher social media use and shorter attention spans doesn't necessarily mean it's as simple as a cause and effect relationship. It's not very black and white. There's other factors to take into consideration that may be causing both of those things, such as mental illness. And she articulates it really well in the article.
And so did you also converse with students in building this feature and writing this feature to get a perspective from younger people, and not all students, of course, at any university are necessarily younger people, but particularly for this article, speaking to younger people that are the focus of this topic of conversation, and in those conversations that you may have had with them, what sort of factors did you piece together that came into their use of TikTok and their attention span as it relates to consuming that media, but consuming it on such a massive scale where people are often, they can go on there to watch these 15-second to 3-minute videos and be scrolling through TikTok for several hours?
Sure. Well, I started off with the idea kind of based on my personal experience. I felt that, especially during the course of the pandemic, I've been on TikTok more and more, and my attention span seems to be smaller and smaller. And just talking amongst my friends or other students, I've heard similar experiences. And so when it came to the article itself, I did interview one student and got her take. And she told me about how she used TikTok for over an hour a day on average. We looked at the statistics collected by her phone and settings. And I also checked out what the national average is, which also is, I believe, over an hour a day. So that's where that perspective came in.
We're joined by Sarah Goodenow. She is an Oakland University journalism student as well as the features editor at their student newspaper, the Oakland Post. You can learn more information by just searching the Oakland Post on Oakland University's website at oakland.edu to learn more information and read some of these articles from Sarah and from others on the team as well. And so in the journalism curriculum, and particularly for you as someone that enjoys the writing side of journalism and more of the print or online written journalism side, obviously you've had to have taken a lot of writing classes, or you will be taking more writing classes to improve in those skills. But what are some of the other focuses in your education to get that broad scope of what it takes to be a quality journalism, and how does that apply to the work that you do both in your own features with the Oakland Post, but also in the guidance that you provide to other features writers at the Post?
Sure. Well, I've had some pretty impactful courses. My advanced writing and editing class really is where I first experienced editing other my peers' work. We got good practice with AP style, and taught by that same professor. I had a class that was ethical issues in the media, where we explored things such as journalistic objectivity, how to be an ethical writer, like how does social media impact journalism? And so those are things I can keep in mind and pass down to the reporters whose work I'm editing. Kind of apart from a journalistic focus, my favorite class by far that I've taken at university so far was actually a gender communications class, which was really interesting. And I find that to be helpful, not only in my writing, but when I'm communicating with different reporters.
We're joined by Sarah Goodenow. She is the features editor at the Oakland Post, which is Oakland University's independent student newspaper. You can learn more information at oaklandpostonline.com. Again, that is oaklandpostonline.com. And so, Sarah, of course, we talked about a couple of your more recent features. What are other stories that you're currently working on, or that your team's currently working on over there at the Oakland Post that people can expect to enjoy here in the near future?
I'm currently working on a story analyzing where Oakland University stands as an LGBTQ plus friendly campus. That's in the works. I hope to talk to our Gender and Sexuality Center at the university, as well as students, to get their perspectives. And our team, we're always working on different university campus related stories. A big series that's been this whole semester and last semester was contract negotiations between administration and faculty, and that is still an ongoing series that people can check out.
Well, Sarah, thank you very much for joining us, telling us more about, of course, your interest in journalism, some of your recent articles with the Oakland Post, and, of course, about all the work that's being done over there at Oakland University's independent student-ran newspaper.
Thank you.
When times get dark, we can't see the help that's all around us. When you don't know where to turn, let 211 be your guiding light.
How can I help you?
Our guides are ready to connect you with the help you need. For help with food, healthcare, mental health, and other resources, call 211 or visit 211.org. 211, Get connected, get help.
If you are struggling to afford your internet bills during the pandemic, there's a temporary government program that may be able to help. It's called the Emergency Broadband Benefit, and it provides up to a $50 monthly discount on your broadband bill to qualifying households. Find more information about the program, including if you qualify and how to enroll, at fcc.gov/broadbandbenefit, or call toll-free at 833-511-0311.
A public service announcement from 89.3 Lakes FM. Welcome back to the Megacast. You can learn more information about our show, including everywhere that we broadcast live to tape, and also find us on demand at civiccentertv.com/Megacast. We're broadcasting in a lot of different places, community television and radio here in Oakland County, in places like Orion Neighborhood Television, Birmingham Area Municipal Access, the Media Network of Waterford, of course, we broadcast on as well. We recently spoke with Jeff Decker from there, and you can from that organization. You can find that interview on our Megacast page as well by clicking on Watch Full Interviews. And a lot of these networks, on top of participating with us here in the Megacast each and every day, and sometimes even being on the show with us, they do a lot of great work beyond that. And so we'd like to take some time today to feature one of those great programs from our friends down in Southfield at City Cable 15 of Southfield. One of the many great programs they run is their show, The Author's Den, hosted by Chris Campbell. We're now going to share a segment of The Author's Den in which Chris speaks with writer Chris G. Lee about his battles with addiction. We hope you enjoy this segment from City Cable 15 of Southfield.
Welcome to the Author's Den, where we present new and established authors and book releases ranging from fiction to sci-fi, all the way to historical, self-help, comic books, graphic novels, and everything else in between. Today's guest is media broadcaster and self-help guru Chris Lee. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Let's get right into it. You had a very traumatic injury where you sustained a very traumatic sort of brain injury. Kind of walk us through that, because those were the seeds for your latest book.
Exactly, for my latest book, and also just for my life in general, to kind of get me on a whole different trajectory. So in 2007, on my way to work into downtown Detroit, I was rushing because I was running late for work. The freeway was backing up, and I said, I'm going to take a shortcut. Got off the freeway, headed through Southwest Detroit, which is a neighborhood I know like the back of my hand. My family's been in that neighborhood for like 2 generations. I had an untimely meeting. You know, the streets are real narrow. There's buildings here and there. Untimely meeting with a fire truck in the middle of an intersection. And I tell you what, I was so sure that I was going to die that I did not even tense up.
Were they on their way to a call? Or
yeah, they were on their way to a call, and for whatever reason, at the moment that we met in that intersection, they did not have their sirens on. Wow. So it would just boom, and I sustained some physical injuries, but the brain injury was a life changer. I tell people at the time, I thought it was the absolute worst thing that ever happened to me, and you know, now here we are 10 plus years later, one of the best things that ever happened, because it put my life on a different trajectory.
Well, before we get to that trajectory, talk briefly about some of the short and long-term effects from that injury.
Yeah, so a brain injury, the way that I like to describe it is, imagine your entire life in a filing cabinet. And it's set up in order, it's color-coded, you got folders and everything in every drawer. For a brain injury, imagine taking that entire thing and then just dumping it. And then grabbing it all and shoving it back in there. Not nicely or the way that it was, just shoving it all in there.
Wow.
And now you have to spend the next few weeks or months, or in some cases years, trying to reorganize that information that was in your brain.
Goodness. Well, Addicted to Death, Overcoming Addiction Through Knowledge of Self. This isn't your first book. You've had other books, and we'll talk about that later on in the show. Yeah. But this is your latest book. That title is loaded, covers a lot of ground. Just sort of break down what led you to coming up with that title and writing that book, and then kind of tie in that injury that you had with
for sure. So the title Addicted to Death came from my experience with various addictions, with alcohol, prescription painkillers, sleeping pills, food. You know, a lot of people don't talk about food addiction because it's not glamorous. They just say you eat too much. But so the title of the book, Addicted to Death, has to do with dealing with those things, because if you have those addictions, health-wise, they lead you to an early death. But I also talk about something bigger, having to do with us as people of color needing healing. And so healing the past, healing emotions that we don't like to deal with, and things of mindset that many of us have, that is the real addiction to death. For myself, I say that the addiction to the pills and the booze and the food, those were just a symptom. The real addiction was my toxic mindset. Yeah.
Now, as the book title implies about addiction, you're addicted to a life that you did not like, which was really grounded in the mindset that you're speaking of.
Yes.
So with that said, how did that impact your relationships, your health, your career?
Yep. So, and I used to be ashamed to admit this, but my old life caused me to be a very inauthentic person. It caused me to go along to get along. Fake it till you make it. But after sustaining a traumatic brain injury, I no longer had the brain power or the mental capacity to fake it anymore. So now here I was forced to live for the first time as my authentic self. And I didn't know so much about my life that I did not like. Things needed to change.
Now, the book touches on you having to forge a new identity in order to connect to the authentic you. Kind of walk us through what that involved.
Yeah, it's pretty simple, actually. So you have who you are, right? And then you have what you do. And if who you are and what you do mesh together, then you're in alignment with yourself, with your authentic self. But if who you are and what you do don't match up, then that causes resistance and you don't feel good. And all of us, no matter what we do, bad things, good things, whatever, everybody does what they do because they want to feel better. And so for me, reinventing myself had to do with my desire to feel better and finding a way to actually make that happen.
Explain how that impacted your relationships, like with family, with friends, you know, kind of just walk us through the synergy of all that.
Yeah, so being inauthentic or not being in alignment with my true self caused me to, again, fake it till I make it with a lot of relationships. So there's a lot of times when you're with people, you end up being friends with people you have no business being friends with. You end up having relationships with people you have no business having a relationship because those people and their values are not aligned with you and your authentic values. And then over time, you end up losing yourself. You don't know who your own self is anymore.
Now, there's a mantra in your book, and we'll have you sort of break that down for us. If you have better information, you can make better choices. If we understand ourselves better than we understand each other, we'll understand each other better. In turn, we understand the world better, and we'll begin to think differently. Just sort of break down the mechanics of that mantra. Better information leading to better choices, better life.
Yeah. So in life, you know, you don't know what you don't know. And then the next thing that comes after that is now you know what you don't know, and then you're in a position to learn something new. I'll give you an example. When I was growing up, my grandmother was a diabetic, and sometimes her blood sugar would dip really low, which would cause her to kind of go into kind of like a daze. Sometimes she would even pass out. Now, when I was a kid, the first time that happened, I thought she had died. I was terrified. But then other relatives says, no, when that happens, you have to give her something sweet. That means her blood sugar dipped too low. When the blood sugar comes up, she'll be okay. So the second time, hey, I knew what happened. I had better information so I could make a better choice. Rather than call 911, I knew, okay, I can give her, you know, a sip of juice and she'll kind of come around. And so that's kind of the philosophy of, you know, having better information, making better choices. Knowledge of self piece comes in where you learn about yourself, and then now you understand yourself better. You're able to understand everybody around you better, and you're able to understand the world better, have a different worldview.
So it's all interrelated, all interconnected, and all of that. Okay. Yeah. Now, while this book is basically kind of a chronicalization of your personal journey, it's also somewhat of a self-help book. You have kind of like a workbook or workshop mechanism to it. Explain that and how people may benefit from reading that and apply it to themselves.
Yeah, for sure. So there's kind of two aspects to the book. There is the part that's a memoir where I tell my story and be vulnerable and kind of share everything that happened. Yeah. There's also a part of the book that is being adapted into a workbook where I go through some of the things, the nuts and bolts of some of the things that actually helped me navigate the brain injury, and also some of the things that helped me to move myself into a position mentally where I could be more successful. And that's the thing that I want to share with other people. I want to kind of help shorten the learning curve to greatness.
Yeah. Now, you've been sort of doing a lot of pre-promotion for the book. Anyone that goes on your social media pages, you will see a lot of the mantras and messaging from the book. What's been some feedback that you've gotten so far in the advanced stages of this pre-promotion effort?
Yeah, a lot of the feedback that I have gotten has been, we all have shared experiences, but the thing is, we often don't share those shared experiences. Wow. And so when I post snippets of the book, I've gone on Instagram Live a few times, and I was blown away with how many people related to what I talked about in the book. For instance, one thing that I talk about in the book as a kid was reconciling who or what God is. As a kid, in my mind, God was this angry white man in the sky that killed bad people. And I'm like, that is not, and so I have a lot of friends that are church people, all different faiths and things like that. Yeah. So I was a little bit nervous about sharing that, growing up. That was my, that was my viewpoint of God. But there were so many people that resonated with and that understood that. There were so many people in the chapter where I talk about my father and how I felt like he and I did not have the best relationship, and how growing up I felt like my father did not pour into me like I wanted him to. But then towards the end of his life, I realized my father didn't have anything to give. He didn't have anything to pour into me. And just by being vulnerable and sharing different things like that, it's resonated with a lot of people, and it helps people on their healing journey as well when they realize, hey, I'm not alone.
Absolutely. It seems like some of those mindsets that you speak of in the book, they predated your accident. A lot of these mindsets began kind of at infancy sometimes and are reinforced throughout various experiences of your life. Yeah. How does the book talk about the various mindsets that are formed early on in your life and how to sort of unlearn those and kind of just reprogram yourself?
Yep. So there's so much programming that comes from the media. And even though, you and I are both a part of the media, but there's so much, especially on a global level, there's a lot that goes into, so things that you see growing up, it could be something as simple of, as a kid growing up, seeing God depicted as a white man. It might not seem like a big deal. That's something that's kind of universally accepted, that this is God. There's things like that have an effect on your subconscious mind. Things that you see on the news, seeing how people of color are depicted when there's a news story. TV shows like Good Times.
Absolutely.
This is like a Black Gilligan's Island. Regardless of what happens, these people are stuck in the ghetto. Right? Yeah. And so those things all factor into our subconscious mind. And then internally, those are some of the external factors. Internally, some of the factors are the self-talk that we give to ourselves and the self-talk that we've received from our caregivers, from our parents, our aunts and uncles, the things that they said, that kind of shapes the voice in your head. And so there's a lot of quote unquote unlearning that needs to take place for us to be in a position to where we can do better and feel better and think better.
Man, this book really excites me, just the perspective it takes and just the way you're tackling some of these issues, many of them systemic and kind of long-standing. So I give you kudos on that.
Thank you.
Now, the book is slated for release very soon.
Yes.
What's the plan in terms of tours, events, activities around that? What's some of the initial promotional efforts behind it?
Yep, so I'll be doing a virtual book launch within the next few weeks. Because of things are kind of constantly changing with COVID and the Delta variant and all those things like that. I would have loved to have a big, book release party and all that stuff. But so we're gonna do a virtual release, and I'll be going on a virtual book tour. I have several podcasts that I'll be appearing on. I've got some speaking engagements set up. So just excited to be able to get this message out to people.
Absolutely. Now, this isn't your first book. We're going to discuss some of your other authored works. You've also written other books that include Our Truth Is Not a Lie, which was more of an anthology piece, From Frustration to Fulfillment, and The Soul of a Winner, which you co-authored. Explain the role those books have played in your development as an author and subject matter expert.
Yeah, for sure. So my very first book was From Frustration to Fulfillment. That book in detail chronicles my recovery from the brain injury. And that book actually started out as a journal.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I started just kind of jotting down my thoughts. Because, see, I was having a hard time at that time because we all attach our self-worth to something.
Yeah.
One of the things that I had attached my self-worth was to my intelligence. And now, after the brain injury, that intelligence was essentially gone. Not the same guy that I was, back then. So that book started out kind of as a journal, basically me kind of complaining about my life. And it kind of got into a place where I started giving thanks for certain things, and then I just started chronicling this journey. And so that's what that book is about. And then the other books, the anthology, that book is myself and several other authors. Shout out to Chanel Spencer. She's the one that put that together. And I talk about what can you build from your broken pieces. And I talk about the ancient city of Tyre. Alexander the Great wanting to take that city, but it was an island and he couldn't get to it. But he didn't give up. And when he actually took the time to look into it, there was a sandbar 6 feet below, and they took the ruins from the city and they made a bridge, and they got over there, used their broken pieces to achieve a goal. And that's kind of what that book talks about. And then those books helped me to arrive at this book, because this book doesn't really pull any punches. I talk about things that I probably never would have talked about before in any of the other books, but I feel like that it's important to kind of let it all hang out, because we have shared experiences that people never talk about. And this is a part of the healing process. It's kind of shining a light on the things that are taboo that we don't want to talk about.
And it seems like just talking about some of these perceived taboo subjects is the first step to get on the road to healing.
Yeah.
It seems like that's a big part of your books as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Nice. Now, you've also got a documentary in the works and will be dropping soon. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, the documentary is called Love Her, and it is basically a celebration of Black women and kind of looks at the contributions that they have made to Black culture. And so it's something that was shot a while ago, but now is the time, with everything together and the climate that we're in socially, I think it's very important to give Black women their flowers, because they have done so much, not only for the Black culture, but for the world. And I don't think people realize that.
If you can kind of give us a little tidbit, who are some of the women that you cover in that? If you could give us a little glimpse into that. Yeah.
So part of it is talking about the women that everybody knows.
Okay.
The big guns, Michelle Obamas of the world, and people like that. Yeah. But part of it is talking to people that are not known worldwide, but people that are important. People that are making a difference in Detroit. One of the people that I interview is Goddess Alex. And she's in Detroit. She's a Detroit-based hairstylist.
Entrepreneur.
And she does something called therapy. Or therapy, I'm sorry, therapy,
right.
where, you know, she does her clients' hair and they talk and stuff like that. And it's just, I really feel like that's one of the centerpieces of the documentary. We also talked to a gentleman by the name of Rick Ector that is...
he's the proponent, firearm proponent.
Exactly, yeah. And we follow him on the day that he taught 900 women how to use a firearm.
That was historic.
Yeah.
Read about that in the news.
Yeah. And I had mixed feelings about it. You know, I felt some type of way about, like, you know, this is teaching all these people how to shoot. But talking to some of the women and hearing their experiences and knowing from seeing the news the types of things that bad guys do to women, and to see the empowerment and the confidence that learning how to shoot, even if they didn't buy a gun, just learning how to shoot, it was like, that was amazing to see. It was one of the most amazing parts of the documentary.
Now, you've also been a television, radio personality. Briefly talk about how those past experiences inform your work as an author now.
So those, you know, being a talk radio host for several years, it helps me to get a message across more succinctly. You know, when like for the first book, there was a lot of fluff. You know, and I worked with an editor. We cut it down. It ended up being like 90 pages. So being in the media and being a presenter and hosting television shows or radio shows helped me to deliver this message succinctly and to deliver it to a very wide audience by touching on things that we all have in common.
Awesome. Now, in terms of just the healing aspect of your book, there was a statement that I've been seeing on your promotional pieces. Emotional healing leads to emotional freedom. What does emotional freedom look and feel like?
Yeah, emotional freedom feels like being able to be your authentic self. Emotional freedom looks like, before I achieved emotional freedom, I was 330 pounds. Wow. And people always say, man, how did you lose weight? What did you do? And I shed all of the baggage, all the emotional baggage that I had been, I did a few other things, but you know, nothing that would make you lose over 100 pounds. And you know, so that's kind of what it looks and feels like. And it feels like, as a father and as a black man, emotional freedom is the freedom to show up for my kids, the freedom to show up for the people in my life that depend on me, and to be a mentor and a blessing to them instead of a burden and a bad influence in a you know.
Powerful statement, powerful. Now, what's one major takeaway that you hope readers take away or glean from your book?
Yeah, be your authentic self. Be you. Life is too short to fake it, to make it. However you feel, whatever it is that you want to do and accomplish, go for it. That thought, that idea is in your head for a reason.
And now you're quite vocal and regular in social media too. You do what are, to me, like informal workshops and things, so just to spark conversations and dialogue. How often do you do that, and where can people go to even follow that as well?
Yeah, so go to @ThinkChrisLee on all platforms, on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. And I have events probably about once a month. I'll go live, or sometimes I'll organize a formal event. And the big thing, again, is to get people together, to have conversations, get things out in the open, have discussions, and just facilitate healing. Even if it's just a little bit of healing, that helps get people in a better position.
Absolutely. Well, Chris, it's been an honor to have you on the show. Thank you so much for coming on, and best wishes on the book release and the tour. And feel free to come back anytime. Your chair has your name on it.
Thank you.
Whether you're the city,
the county,
or the Huron River Watershed Council,
we work together to protect water resources for everyone.
Most of the pollution entering our rivers is carried by rainwater that runs off roads, parking lots, and rooftops.
A rain garden helps catch stormwater runoff.
Rain gardens and their plants help dirty runoff soak into the ground.
You can do your part to help keep our water clean.
Learn about rain gardens and native plants.
So consider a rain garden in your home landscaping.
Catch the runoff with a rain garden.
There's one water, and it's ours to protect.
Joining us now is David Franco. He's the director of the Exceptional Academy through the Living and Learning Engagement Center, which of course is a Share Detroit supported charity and nonprofit. David, thank you for being with us today.
Tyler, thank you for having me.
Appreciate having you on. So first off, tell us a little bit about the Exceptional Academy and the services that it provides to those that are being served by the Living and Learning Engagement Center.
Yeah, so the Exceptional Academy, just to clarify one misnomer, is that it's not a place. It's actually an advanced work skills training program provided by the Living and Learning Enrichment Center to area adults with disabilities. Currently, we focus on one curriculum focused on IT certification training with a focus in cybersecurity. We've been doing this for 3 years now, and the program is basically like a typical school year. It lasts from the fall until the summer, it's actually the first program of its kind in the state of Michigan when we started in 3 years ago, and it was only the second of its kind in the entire country at that time. There are more now, but like I said, we were only the second of its kind ever. So it's really a groundbreaking program.
Yeah, it's a great program. That's a partnership, of course, between the Living and Learning Engagement Center, also Cisco Networking Academy, Mitch Album's Say Detroit Play Center, and consulting support as well from Patrick Romzik, who was a retired Cisco executive and the program designer. Of course, and we're talking with David Franco, the director of the Exceptional Academy, on the Megacast. And as you said, this is a program that provides IT certification training for individuals that are affiliated with the Living and Learning Engagement Center. So what does this program consist of? How long does it last? And what are some of the educational experiences that go into helping these people gain this certification?
Yeah, so like I said, it lasts a typical school year. So we go from September until May, June. And it's basically a full-time program. We meet Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And the way our day is structured is, from 9 a.m. to noon, we have, typical, just typical teaching. But we modify our approach. We use multiple formats. Our teacher won't just talk for the full 3 hours. He'll kind of mix it up. He'll do some live instruction, and he'll mix it up with like video, classroom discussion on the topic. He'll introduce lab work, but it's all modified to accommodate people with disabilities. And while we work with people with all disabilities, the most popular disability for our students is autism. And just to kind of put this in perspective, this curriculum is available all over the world. I mean, there's the Cisco Networking Academies are everywhere. This is one of the only ones, though, that's geared specifically towards people with disabilities. And to like I said, to put it in perspective, if you were to take this curriculum at a local college or university, they'll meet with their students about 4 to 6 hours a week. We meet with our students 30 hours a week. And what makes this successful is the fact that, like I said, in the mornings we do the typical instruction, and then the afternoons we reserve that for guided self-study. And so the students will study the material on their own, but the TA, there's a TA and the instructor that are available to answer any questions that they have. And in the afternoons, we also focus on one-on-one instruction and small group instruction. And so that's where we really drive the material home. That's where all the material is actually customized, because all of our students learn in different ways. That's what the autism spectrum is all about. And so our instructor has to be able to identify the different learning styles that each student is comfortable with, and that's how he works with them in the afternoons. And so that's what makes this a success, is that the customized approach, the fact that it's adapted in terms of being lengthened, and just spending more time on the material so that we can make sure that all the students are successful. I'd like to mention the fact that while the primary goal of the Academy is to provide this technology training to area adults with disabilities, the secondary goal is to raise awareness with area employers and help them become more disability friendly and able to and really understand the benefits of working with people with disabilities. And so we work with them by getting them as intimately involved with the program as possible. We have like guest speakers from various corporations. We'll have like site visits. Either they'll come to our classroom, or we'll go to their facility to see like their IT department and talk with their IT staff and learn about what it's like to work in technology, networking, and cybersecurity. So what we do is whatever we can to get them involved and really engage with the students so that they can understand what they're capable of. So in that regard, it's very, very helpful, because we're helping all these companies really get a better understanding of working with people with disabilities.
Yeah, and these programs like this are also providing great opportunities for individuals with disabilities, and as you said, in particular, those with autism, to find long-standing careers that are in areas of their interest and areas of passion for them, that they're able to learn these skills and learn these proper techniques, build them into careers, and have a lot of success. Can you give us an example of a success story, or a couple of success stories from this effort, from the Exceptional Academy?
Yeah, most definitely. So, and before I get into the stories, the one thing to understand is that all of our students that come through the program, they either have never worked a day in their lives, or if they have worked, they've worked part-time jobs making at or near minimum wage. And so that's what we're starting with. And so, just to give you an example, in our first year, like I said, we're in our third year now, but in our first year, we had a student who was working as a janitor at Del Taco, and this is the type of job he probably would have had for the rest of his life. He came to the program, did very well, got his certification. We got him an internship with one of our partners, Plant Moran. And he was in that, and that was at the time of COVID. So unfortunately, that internship was supposed to be obviously in person, but because of COVID, it had to be done remotely. And so what happened was, it was supposed to be a 3-month internship, but because they couldn't devote as much time to it as they'd like, because it wasn't in person, they kept extending it. So 3 months became 6 months, 6 months became 9 months. So it was a really, a pretty long internship. And then after the internship was done, they brought him on, and he is now a full-time cybersecurity consultant for Plant Moran, one of the largest accounting firms in the country. And so, and actually just this fall, he became a published writer as well, because on Plant Moran's behalf, he published an article on corporate cybersecurity. So, the list of this gentleman's accomplishments just continues to grow. And so, it really changed his life. And just another example that I wanted to provide was we were working with somebody who was a former vet, a disabled veteran. She had a physical disability. And it was really strange. I've heard her story many times because she's talked about it publicly. And this was somebody who, spent many years in the Army. She had a college degree, single mom, and she had multiple certifications. She didn't have our certification, but she had some lower level certifications. But for whatever reason, she was not able to get a job. And, she tried all these different avenues to get a job, and it just wasn't working. And she heard about the academy, came through just like the other person. You know, she got her certification. We got her an internship at Comerica Bank, one of our other partners, and same type of thing. They kept extending the internship because they wanted to give her the proper experience. And once the internship was done, she was hired on full time, and she is now a network engineer for Comerica. And it's interesting because just this past Veterans Day, she was featured on the local television news as, you know, a success story for a disabled veteran. So yeah, just these are the types of things that are happening. You know, it's this program is absolutely changing lives for the better. So, you know, really exciting stuff, and it's happening right here in Detroit.
And so, David, if people are interested in this program, either individuals or families are interested on behalf of a loved one, how can they get more information and maybe even sign up to be taking part in the Exceptional Academy?
So there's they could either contact the Living and Learning Enrichment Center, and if you go to livingandlearningcenter.org, they can look up our phone number and they can call and express interest there. We have a Facebook page that's it's Exceptional Academy Northville, and there's ways for them to reach us there. Obviously, the Share Detroit website has our contact information. So there are multiple ways to reach us, and getting involved with the program just requires an intake. An intake is basically like a 20-30 minute call with me, just so I can get some background information and make sure that the student is qualified. We look for 10th grade reading and math, and of course a strong interest, if not a passion, for technology.
We're joined by David Franco, the director of the Exceptional Academy, joining us on the Megacast. You can learn more information by visiting livingandlearningcenter.org/IT-academy. Again, livingandlearningcenter.org/IT-academy. And David, there are other ways that individuals, if they're not taking part in the program or they want to advocate for the program, there are other ways that they can provide support as well for Exceptional Academy.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like for example, we have a mentorship program that we do. So we look for professionals in networking or cybersecurity who'd be willing to, talk with the student. It's basically dedicating about an hour per month, just in the way of like having a conversation with a student, either over the phone or over something like Zoom, any kind of video conference. But this could be done virtually. Like I said, just an hour a month could change somebody's life. But we look for things like that. We look for professionals in the industry that can maybe do some guest speaking. Anything on any kind of topic in networking or cybersecurity is helpful. Any kind of like demonstration, a cybersecurity or networking demonstration. An opportunity to see somebody's, a company's IT environment where we can, see their equipment and talk to the professionals and get an idea of what's involved in their day. These students are learning a concept that is somewhat abstract, and then if they're able to see it in a live environment, it starts to make more sense. So, visual learners, it's helpful for them to see it live.
Big thank you to David and all of our guests on today's edition of the Megacast. I want to thank them. I invite you to watch all of our interviews from today's show on our website at civiccentertv.com/Megacast. Thank you as well to our technical producer, Calvin Brown, the king of television himself, Larry Nyland, our producer, and Maddie Mustian out of Master Control, helping us get on and off the air today. On My Michigan TV, Steve Leto Live is next. We'll return tomorrow morning live at 10 a.m.